Hey everyone, welcome to Bald Guy Money. I am Bald Guy, and I want to start this video by reminding you all about just how scarce gold and silver are. Because you can print dollars, you can print euros, you can even print yuan, but gold and silver cannot be printed. And this is a topic that I covered in a past video when I showed you this data based on numbers taken from the Royal Mint, which show just how much gold and silver has been mined by humans throughout history. So this even includes gold and silver that has been lost to us for various reasons. Now, these numbers really start to come into focus when we divide those amounts by the number of people alive today, which is just above 8 billion people, by the way, because that means there are only 3.1 ounces of silver per human on Earth and a paltry 1.2 ounces of gold. It's not a lot. And taking these figures out one step further, based on the estimation that there are about 2.2 billion homes in the world of varying size and quality, of course, it means that there are only 11.4 ounces of silver per home and 4.4 ounces of gold per home. So still not a lot. Now, over the past couple years, there has been a lot of noise being made about central bank gold buying. And here on the screen, you can see a list of official reserves for the top 10 central banks. But as you'll notice, if we take these figures at face value, when compared to that total amount of gold I shared with you a moment ago from the Royal Mint, you can see these central banks don't even hold 10% of that amount, despite the total value of all that gold being nearly $2 trillion. Now, when we factor in gold that is lost to us, that $2 trillion figure suggests that the central banks shown here on the screen could hold as much as 11.5% of the estimated $17 trillion of gold that is still accounted for in the total value of the world's gold market. But no matter which number is correct, whether it's the below 10% number or the 11.5% number, it is abundantly clear that the majority of the gold out there is still with the people today. And in this video, I want to reveal a ranking I've put together that ranks gold owners, stackers, investors, whatever it is you call yourselves, into groups. Some might call it a hierarchy, and I've done this to illustrate the differences between stackers of different economic classes, not to make anybody feel good or feel bad about themselves, but to give you all a clear idea of how the middle class stacks gold as compared to millionaires, and how millionaires stack gold as compared to the ultra wealthy and billionaires. And I sincerely hope many of you will see this as another opportunity for setting goals as it relates to saving in precious metals. And once I've revealed that, I will answer a viewer question on the topic of the value of the US dollar and why it's lost so much value since the Second World War, despite being backed by gold until 1971. And this is a very good viewer question, so I really encourage you all to stick around to the end of this video because it's a great lesson in counterparty risk. Now, just before we dive in, I am thrilled to be able to tell you all that you can now get free educational articles and newsletters written by me at www.summitmetals.com. This is the big announcement I've been teasing, not only because this is a new partner on the channel, which is now online and ready to take your gold and silver orders, but because they want to do things differently, and it's why I decided to partner with them. And it starts with education. So educating buyers to make sure they are choosing the best products for them. It's also about making metals available for everyone, by the way, especially gold, via special offers and flash sales. And right now, my American viewers can get this 1/10 of an ounce gold American Eagle for $291.49. I even have one with me here today, which is lower than on any site I have seen. On top of that, they are offering this wallet you can see here on the screen. It holds 1/10 ounce coins. I'm actually waiting for mine, but I already picked up this one that holds 1 gram bars. I hope you can see it. I find it extremely convenient for both storing my fractional pieces as well as transporting them. I even bought one for my 15-year-old son to kind of encourage him in his stacking journey. So I will leave the links to these deals along with the link to my latest article on fractional gold in the video description below. This is a very big deal for me, everyone, and I sincerely hope that you'll support me in this partnership. And please remember that this new site is www.summitmetals.com. It doesn't cost a thing to check it out, but I am sure that you will like what you see there. So, getting into the ranking of gold owners and stackers, I said I wanted to create a ranking for people to understand where they are in relation to other gold stackers, because assets like Bitcoin, love it or hate it, have fun things like this ranking where smaller owners are called shrimp and large owners are called whales. And although I don't necessarily like being classified by sea creature names, I find this very useful in understanding not only where I am in relation to the so-called big boys, and believe me, this list and ranking definitely includes ladies too, so don't worry about that for the lady stackers out there. But I also like the idea of it because it allows you to set savings targets as you try to level yourself up and get into higher groups or levels. So kind of like making saving in gold and silver or even Bitcoin a game, which at the end of the day, I think saving money, especially real money like gold and silver, should be fun. I personally find it to be a lot of fun. Now, since I have an obvious problem with saving more than $500,000 and being called an octopus, I want to use titles for our gold savings rankings that reflect the historic importance that gold has played as money over the last few thousand years. So in this video, we'll use medieval noble titles instead of the Red Lobster menu that Bitcoin uses, starting at knight and working our way up to king. And instead of boring you all with the methodology as I've done in past videos, I will simply say that the methodology I used to develop this ranking is a variation of the Bitcoin hierarchy that has been adjusted to take into account the long history of gold as money, as well as factor in higher central bank and institutional investor interest. So let's take a look at the first three levels, which are knight, lord, and baron. And I assume this is where most viewers will find themselves, as these levels are very achievable for people who are watching from developed countries and are good savers, most likely in the middle class, starting with knight, which is a tip of the hat to the people who are kind of new to gold, because you matter. If you're new to gold and you're starting off with a small amount of gold, you matter. If there is only 1.2 ounces of gold per human on Earth, having a 1/10 of an ounce coin or even a 1/2 ounce coin already puts you way ahead of most people in the world who only have debt to their name. Now, I'm not going to comment on each level individually. You can see the numbers there for yourselves, along with the current US dollar value of the range at spot price on the right side. But before I move on, I will say that I found it curious that my 5-ounce gold level, an amount I always encourage people to try to get, made an appearance here on the list at the baron level, which is at the high end of your average saver's gold stack. And I just want to add that, as I've demonstrated in other videos, having 5 ounces of gold is a great foundation to a precious metals stack. Okay, so moving on to the next three levels, and for those of you who watched my past video on how much gold and silver the typical millionaire has, and when I say typical millionaire, by the way, I'm talking about people with an average net worth of just over 2 million US dollars. So you'll see that at the low end, they likely have baron level gold. But for the most part, these next three levels is where you're going to find most millionaires with a net worth from that $2 million level all the way up to the $30 million territory. And here they are. These are the viscounts, counts, and marquises of the gold stacking community. People with a gold stack starting at 25 troy ounces of gold and going all the way up to 1,000 troy ounces of gold, which is a little more than 30 kilograms if you're wondering what that is in bars or in the metric system. And I know that for some of you, it may seem unbelievable that such stackers exist, especially at the high end, so close to 1,000 troy ounces of gold. But when it comes to wealth protection and hedging against large paper asset positions, this is where wealthy people who have a high conviction in gold as an insurance policy, this is where they're at. This is how people with a lot of money to protect do it when they have, again, a high conviction to gold. Surely you're wondering now, how can you go up from here? Because having 2.5 million US dollars in gold is a rare thing to begin with. Then again, when it comes to the upper echelons of the aristocracy, they were extremely rare too. There were only a handful of dukes, a few princes or princesses, and there can only be one king or queen. So these next three levels are really levels for the elite, and here I'm talking about people worth hundreds of millions and even billions of US dollars. People like John Paulson, who is an American investor, billionaire, and was rumored to have more than $250 million in physical gold recently. So without any more build-up, here are the last three levels. You can see they are Duke, Prince, and King, and these are levels for the elites, the very few, and I guess there really shouldn't be any cap on the King level there, but there is one, so I suppose anything higher than that should have a different title. I guess I'll have to think of one for the future, but I will say that when you get into these upper levels of this ranking, even though I have expressed the weights in troy ounces because that is what most of us are familiar in, as most of us are stacking troy ounces or even fractional pieces of gold, many of these people, especially European and Middle Eastern billionaires who are not subject to US tax laws, many of them are likely stacking in kilo bars, which have way lower premiums than 1 ounce coins. And I touch on this topic in my fractional gold article on summitmetals.com and why I think having flexibility in a gold stack is important and how fractional gold delivers that. Anyhow, with these levels revealed, I encourage you all to screenshot this for future reference, and I'd love to know what you thought about this. I'd love to know where you aspire to be in this ranking, and if you want to see me do the same thing for silver, let me know in the comments section below right now. So now it's time for this video's viewer question, and it comes from Robert Sattler. Hello, Robert, if you're watching. I sure hope you're watching. I'm answering your question here. And Robert wants to know why the US dollar lost so much value from 1944 to 1971. And I'll bring up an image of that right here for you all to see. And the reason he asks that is if the USA only went off the gold standard in 1971 when Nixon closed the gold window, how is it that the value of the US dollar was still decreasing so much, as you can see here in this image, from 1944 up until the gold window was closed in 1971. And I think this is a fantastic question and an excellent lesson in what is called counterparty risk. Because as most of you know, maybe some of you don't, near the end of the Second World War in 1944, an agreement was made between 44 nations that said the US dollar backed by gold was to be the basis of the world's monetary system in order to maintain stable rates of exchange. Now, obviously, it's a lot more complicated than that, so I'll leave a link to the full story in the video description. But as a part of this deal, US dollars, at least for these foreign countries, could be converted into gold upon request. And at the time they made that deal, that element seemed like fine print in the contract because nobody really expected anyone to want to convert their dollars into gold. There was no point to it until in 1965, as the United States was embroiled in yet another war, this time in Vietnam to contain communism, France, led by Charles de Gaulle, started to notice that there were many more dollars in the system than the United States gold reserves would have allowed for. So de Gaulle called BS on the entire thing, and he said, take your dollars back and give me gold. So simply put, the United States, which was holding a lot of gold and promising to back every dollar with gold, was secretly printing more dollars than it had gold to back it. And it wasn't only to fund war, by the way. Lyndon Johnson, who was president at the time, launched many social welfare programs in his war on poverty that also contributed to the breakdown of the gold-backed dollar system. So, fully aware that the French had exposed the United States' dollar printing scheme, in 1971, with a full understanding that the USA could no longer honor its agreement to redeem dollars for gold, Richard Nixon said, enough is enough. And he ended that by closing the gold window. And that's what we talk about when we say in 1971, the United States officially went off of the gold standard. But Richard Nixon, as controversial as he later became, was quite intelligent. We have to give him that. And with the help of Henry Kissinger, they made a very important deal with Saudi Arabia in 1974 to ensure the future of the fiat dollar by getting them to agree to denominate all oil transactions in dollars. And this is what has allowed the United States to continue its reckless management of the world's reserve currency from then up until today. So, Robert, coming back to your original question, the answer is that despite telling everyone that dollars were backed by gold from 1944 to 1971, the truth is they weren't. And the French were the first to sniff this one out, and of course they were. They are skeptical about absolutely everything. That is at least my experience with the French, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So any French viewers out there, I'm not trying to insult you. I'm actually complimenting you on your skepticism, because the numbers that you're seeing here on the screen speak for themselves. And it's precisely why I don't think we will see a proper return to the gold standard in the 21st century. The trust has been broken, and it's why you hear so many people in the precious metals community say, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that governments will abuse even the best systems that are put into place. So with that said, everybody, that is it for this video. Please remember to like if you enjoyed the content. Please comment, leave me a question potentially for a future video. And if you thought this content was really valuable, don't forget to share it with friends and family to get this message out. This is probably the fastest growing precious metals channel on YouTube, all thanks to you. Thank you so much. And please remember that if you'd like more content, I have more videos, I have more written content on Patreon. You can join. The link is in the description and pinned comment. And now you can even get bonus articles absolutely for free by visiting www.summitmetals.com, which is now the new partner of this channel. Thank you very much, Summit Metals, for your partnership with me, with Bald Guy Money. And with that said, everybody, I'm wishing you all a fantastic day ahead. Please remember to take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.